Hello everyone, welcome to week 10. It's very difficult to believe that we are already in the 10th week. So this week we'll mostly talk about public opinion and the political culture. The agenda is quite big today, so I'll start as soon as possible so that we'll have enough time to cover everything. So basically today we'll start talking about the differences and the similarities between public opinion and political culture. And then we'll visit first political culture, what are the main aspects of it. So maybe we'll talk about different citizen types and then political socialization, agents of political socialization. And then we'll visit public opinion. So what is public opinion, the opinion polls, different distributions of public opinion. So let's move on. So first of all, let's start with the definition of political culture. So you probably all have an idea what culture really is. Culture is kind of like system of empirical beliefs or values. And think about those beliefs and values that are related directly to the politics or the whole political system. So basically everyone has an understanding of how the political system should operate. That's exactly what we focus on ideology on the second week. But this one is quite different because when we say political culture, it is embracing everyone. So it's definitely a more broader concept that we are talking about here. And it's all about beliefs and values that defines the situation in which political action take place. Okay? And we'll come to that in a minute. Public opinion, on the other hand, is citizens' reactions to current specific issues and events. So what are the similarities? What are the differences? Similarity is the methodology. Basically, we use almost exactly the same methodology to surveys to understand the political culture and the public opinion of a society. And when you think about the methodology, the differences are minuscule. The questions are different. That's all about it. But the differences are, so political culture is more concerned about long-term, deep values and beliefs. This is very important. We are talking about long-term, deep values and beliefs. And these form the underpinnings of the legitimacy for the state itself. So it's very important because we have a better understanding of the legitimacy in a given society. On the other hand, public opinion is more concerned about immediate views of leaders and public policies. So when you look at it from this perspective, I think the main difference is the time frame and the change, the pace of change. So there is a big literature on whether political culture does change or not. And in the past, there are some political scientists who believe that political culture does not necessarily change much. But now we have a better understanding because especially with the generational changes, especially with technology and everything, political culture actually changes. But the pace of change is much slower compared to public opinion. I can actually show you some research showing us that people can change their opinion in 30 minutes. I'm not kidding. There are actually experiments picking up on that. So you can change your opinion like this. But it is more difficult to change if you have deeper values and deeper beliefs. Like almost like think about your religion, right? It's not necessarily quite easy to change one's religion. It takes time. And most of the time, actually, people do not necessarily change their religion. So let's talk about political culture and its types. So there are two very important political scientists, Alman and Verba. So they actually created this concept to understand so how political systems run and how people actually have a relationship with those political systems. And they categorized political cultures under three headings. The first one is the participatory political culture. In this one, citizens are have high interest and high willingness to take part in politics. So their political competence is very high, and they also believe that the political efficacy is something very important, so that they have a feeling that one has at least a little political input, a kind of an effect. So this is one group. So the second one is subject. More subjective political cultures, like feeling, this is kind of a feeling among citizens that they should obey authority but not necessarily participate much in politics. It's almost like being a citizen. Of course, that concept is probably not necessarily citizen, but subject in an empire, right? So you have complete obedience to the authority and not necessarily take part in politics. And finally, parochial is the last one. This is even less participatory than the subject, so it's very narrow. So it has a very narrow understanding of politics, and these are, like, you can always think of these as human types as well. So having little or no interest in national politics. So you can always categorize people around you, citizens of the United States or other countries as well, in these three categories. And another important thing that they pointed, especially political scientists coming after them, pointed is the change in the American political culture. So basically there is this general idea that there is a political decay and change over time in American politics. So why? So one reason is cynicism. Cynicism has increased, especially after Vietnam War, and then especially after the Nixon administration. So people start to become much more cynical about and skeptical about their government. So especially in developed countries, in other European countries as well, there is a decline in voter turnout, and this is kind of result of this cynicism. Another one is culture war. So societies, especially you already know about this in the American society, but in other countries as well, people start to become much more polarized over time. So extreme polarization and almost kind of a tribalism leads this kind of a lack of enthusiasm among citizens getting participating in politics. Decline in civic engagements. This is something we talk a little about, and there is actually a very short video of Robert Putnam's Bowling Alone. So US has a tendency to form associations, and this is in decline. So this goes all the back in history. Alexander de Tocqueville, when he's an aristocrat who escaped from French Revolution, when he came to the US and visited different towns in New England at that time, we are talking about 18th century, beginning of 19th century, he was so surprised and amazed by the liveliness, by the power of the civic engagement at that time in the American society. But there are sociologists and political scientists who are observing over the 20th century, especially 21st century, that this common characteristic, this unique characteristics of the American political culture is actually in decline. We can actually talk more about this tomorrow. And then, of course, another important thing is people are getting more higher education. And more educated people are more willing to criticize their society and their government, which kind of improve democracy, and will come to that under political socialization and also in public opinion as well. So what is political socialization though? So socialization is a process of learning. So learning the culture, and political socialization is learning of political culture. So how does it work? There are agents of political socialization, and it all starts with the primary socialization in your family. So your parents are very influential, and most children grow up adopting the same political values of their parents. Of course, they change, and we already know that some of the people who posted the very first week their discussion in this class said that actually their political view is quite different from their parents, especially also during the week of ideology. And then school is a very important agent as well. So values are also taught at schools where it is done deliberately. So history, your history class is a very important tool for the government to inculcate students with feelings of pride and patriotism. So the more education they have, the greater their sense of commitment to the community. So this is the main thing, and we can always think about the pride in nationality and how it changes from country to country. Peer groups, your friends, your playmates, your peer groups are also quite important as socialization, especially university. Mass media and social media, they are extremely important, and some actually people like Robert Putnam think that watching TV is a negative effect on the people's engagement in politics. He argues that TV is actually making people more passive and unlikely to participate in community and group activities. And finally, government. Government always has a big stake in political socialization. So think about parades. Think about what American flag is symbolizing and why do we see so many flags outside. So all these serve to instill political values, and it's kind of overt socialization. So kind of deliberate government policy to teach culture. So let's move on to public opinion, because we have only 4.5 minutes. So public opinion is, first of all, something different from individual opinion. This is opinion on aggregate. So this is very important to not to forget. This is why it is very constructed thing, socially constructed, and it can change so fast. This is why I think we can always discuss about the reliance on opinion polls, because different opinion polls can give so many different results, and we'll discuss this at the very end of this session. But there is this congruence and a symmetry and relationship between public opinion and public policy outcomes in democratic systems. And if governments know about this, right? So one can think about what if governments actually take action and try to shape public opinion so that actually they can affect the policy outcomes for their own advantage. So this is a very critical view, and this is actually in Noam Chomsky's very important work, Manufacturing Consent. So there is actually a very short video on that as well in the links that I uploaded on Blackboard. So there are some other concepts that I want to touch, but unfortunately we don't have time. But issue salience is one of them. So this is an important part of to shape the public opinion. Public opinion always follows and influenced by salient issues, events, sensational events. So, and there are some demographic factors that we can count as an effect on public opinion. First of all, social class. So social class is incredibly important. So even the United States, which was relatively low levels of class awareness. So basically, manual workers tend to vote for Democrats, which is changing, and it was definitely different in the 2016 elections. White collar workers have more tendency to vote Republican. It can also change, especially in urban versus rural areas. So social mobility is another important concept that we can visit tomorrow. Education is another important factor. So education can contribute to polarization of opinion. So in the United States, education has split effect in that it tends to make people more liberal on social issues, but more conservative on fiscal issues. So we'll also can talk about this as well. Region is extremely important. We even use the South, the American South, as a variable in itself when we run statistical analysis to have predictions about public opinion. So region matters, geography matters, and certain regions tend to vote in relatively stable patterns. Like Republican candidates have a big advantage, for instance, in the South. South is much more conservative, especially on social issues, compared to the north of this country. Religion is probably one of the most explosive issues in structuring public opinion. So it can refer to either denomination or religiosity. We can actually measure them. Age differences are very important. It seems to affect public opinion in two ways. So life cycle theory suggests that public opinions change as they get older. So young people are naturally more radical, older people are more conservative. And generational theory suggests that each generation's views are shaped by important events that they have witnessed. It's much more contextual. Gender is very important, and unfortunately I don't have time, but race, ethnic groups can contribute to the structure of public opinion, especially in multi-ethnic societies with minority subcultures. We can also talk about that tomorrow as well. So unfortunately I couldn't talk much about curves and distribution of public opinion. So maybe we can talk about those tomorrow during our synchronous meeting. And also we'll talk about public opinion polls. I think it's quite timely because next week we'll have elections, and we can maybe take a look at the current trends in public opinion on the elections. So have a nice day all, and I hope to see you all tomorrow in our synchronous meeting.